Hey everyone, it's Miriam again with BCD Travel, and I have found another solution source partner. I've got Andy from International SOS. How you doing, Andy?
Great, Miriam. How are you?
Good. I want to know if you've been to a GBTA before.
I have. This is actually my 6th GBTA.
6th, okay.
Yes, and I'll tell everyone, I actually met my wife at GBTA. So, yeah.
Even the camera person holding this camera just went, oh, you did, okay.
Yes, I have a long and very, very positive history of GBTA, and I think we're all just happy to be back.
Okay, and what do you think about the conference so far?
It's good. I think as a vendor here, I think for us, we weren't quite sure what it was going to be like. We weren't quite sure how many people would be here. We weren't quite sure what the attendance would be. And I can tell you, I think we were all pleasantly surprised and impressed.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So International SOS, you guys have been busy the last 18 months, 20 months. You've not been sitting around. Talk a little bit about what you guys have been doing for business travelers as they stayed on the road, right? Because many business travel, I think it's a misconception, right, that business travel completely shut down. I think even at BCD, we had some clients that stayed on the road and had to continue doing business because they're mission critical businesses. So talk about what it was like over the last 20 months and maybe what you've been working on.
Yeah, so Miriam, you make a great point, right? So International SOS, we have clients all over, all different industries, spectrums. So we have oil and gas clients, we have logistics clients, we have shipping clients. That didn't stop, right? Those people were still on the road. They were still looking for us to support. I'll say some of our professional services, some of our banking clients, they all stopped. But what we were seeing across the board, really two things. And what we're talking about here, one, I think one of the trends you're seeing, and I think you said you were releasing a white paper on this, right?
Yeah, soon.
Where travel risk is going to shift toward all people risk. And what we're seeing as well within our book is that. Whereas 2 years ago, nobody called us for a domestic trip. They're calling us for that now. They need support, they're nervous. So we've shifted our offer a bit, not just international travel, not just expatriates, but domestic business travelers, and then really people that are working anywhere. Right, so you used to know where your people were.
Right.
We have 400 people in our Philadelphia office. We knew they were in Philadelphia.
That's right.
Now, where are they? You don't know. So how do you respond? Say a hurricane hits Houston. How do you know who do we have there? How do we communicate with them? How do we support them? So that's one. Two, the other thing that we've really shifted into is, again, International SOS has always been a medical company.
Right.
We have 4,000 plus doctors and nurses on staff. So what are we using those for? Again, it's shifted a little bit into more consulting. And not just travel related. I can tell you at the beginning of the pandemic, we were getting calls from hotels saying, how do we safely open up a hotel in New York City to help first responders that are helping the hospitals in COVID? We were able to do that. We're a chain of retail. How do we get people into our store again? What does that look like? We're a production company. We're actually, for those of you who watch really just anything on Netflix or HBO or anything on TV these days, if you'll see at the very end of the credits, they all require a COVID advisor.
Okay.
To get back to filming, they required a COVID advisor. International SOS has been really the #1 player in that space where
I didn't know that.
We are helping shows get back on the air. So we had all this expertise. Again, we're a medical company. We've just kind of shifted it into the offer into what we're calling corporate medical advisor consulting. So yeah, to your point, we have not been standing still. We have certainly been busy. And it's been great. I mean, we're happy to be back on the road. We're happy for business travel to be back. But again, it's, I think, shifting the way that people are approaching it and not the days of really keeping your head in the sand and saying, hey, I don't want to think about travel risk. My people are okay. I mean, those days are over and it's been good for us.
Right. So I want to go back to something you said. You had talked about, we have been talking about people risk management, like kind of travel risk management, which used to be just sort of keeping your travelers safe on the road. Corporations are now looking at people risk management, right? Because people have potentially moved away from headquarters or don't live where the employer thinks that they used to live. And this notion of businesses having a responsibility to employees, no matter what they're doing, no matter where they are and whether they're on a business trip or not. So can you talk a little bit about, are these corporations coming to you now and saying, because the travel groups, obviously, as you all know watching, travel groups, this is bread and butter of what we do, tracking travelers, notifying them of risks. We work with you to do that, right? But what are these corporations coming to you asking about, right? They're now, it's new ground for them to start tracking employees outside of business trips. So give me a little view of that.
I want to be really careful about the word tracking as well.
Okay,
we're not
fair
tracking,
enough.
We're not tracking all employees. What we do, though, is we enable the organization to communicate and to be able to locate when something will impact them, right? So if they are working from home in a location that's not the office, and there is an incident we have tools and solutions that can actually help support them. We can say, here's what's happening. We can run back to the company and say, here's who you have in the vicinity. So we're not tracking you as an employee. We don't
Fair
know.
enough. He's right.
We don't know where exactly you are, but we know enough if you opt in to keep you safe, right? And to give you that tool to be able for your organization to be able to come back to you and say, hey, we are going to help you in this. And again, it used to be all of us in this industry, it was international travel mostly, right? We all talked about that trip to China, that trip to Mexico. Now it is really, it's domestic travel and it's just people at home that need support. And we're seeing, again, just one final point I'll make in this, the instance of civil unrest, of crime, of just illness and injury unrelated to COVID is really something that we're seeing more and more, that, again, these risks that were there 2 years ago are still there. So if you're not addressing it, you're really missing the boat.
So you don't think that this is a trend temporarily?
Not at all.
Do you think that corporations, that it is going to be people risk management? You had another term for it. Will you share that term? What did you call it?
So the branding that International SOS uses is workforce resilience. But what it really is all people risk management. It's making sure that you're not just providing solutions to your travelers, you're providing it to everyone who works for you. And you will also see, I think, if any of you that are watching live here, there's a new ISO standard called ISO 31030 that really helps define out what travel risk management is. But one of the really cool things about it is it's saying it's not just employees anymore. You're responsible for anybody who travels on your behalf. So what does that mean? Volunteers, board members, even family members that might travel with an employee. Contractors, all those different people who, hey, they might not be on the payroll FTE, you still need to think about those. And I think, again, as the ISO standard, while not really the be-all, end-all of people risk, really does give our industry a really good place to start.
And it's complicated, and with International SOS, it doesn't have to be. Is that what you're saying? It could be a lot simplified.
Yeah, it is. It's, again, we are the experts in this. We've been in business for 30 plus years, 10,000 plus employees. We are the world's largest travel, medical, and security assistance company. So if you're not a current client of ours, we'd love to talk to you. If you are, thank you for being our client. And again, Miriam, we appreciate you including us on this.
Oh, thanks. Well, what's next for you? What's going on with you guys next?
Yeah, so we're constantly evolving, constantly changing. I think what we're seeing, again, on the medical consulting side, that's really big for us. Again, it's right now we're talking to clients, how do we get back out on the road? We've talked to them, how do we reopen? We're past that. How do we get back on the road? We're in that now. The next question, I think, is, all right, how do we shift from a pandemic to an endemic where COVID will be there? Vaccines are probably going to be required on an annual basis. How do we facilitate that? How do we also, again, thinking about all people, how do we make sure that our local national employees are getting the same access to vaccines, to intelligence, to just general information as our international travelers, as our executives, right? So again, you can't really separate out those groups anymore, and International SOS is really well positioned to help you address risk that every employee are going to face.
I can't think of a better outfit to tackle all these challenges than you guys.
We appreciate that.
Thanks for your time. We appreciate you joining us, and thanks to you, International SOS. Andy, I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
And we will see you next time. Thanks a lot.